For many first-year students, the university may be their first experience living away from home for an extended period of time. It is a definite break from home. In my point of view, this is the best thing that you can do. I know you have to fend for yourself, cook and clean after yourself, basically look after yourself without your parents, but the truth is sometime in your life you are going to have to part with lovely mommy and daddy. But they are only just a phone call away, and it is really good to have some quality time without them. The first few weeks can be a lonely period. There may be concerns about forming friendship. When new students look around, it may seem that everyone else is self-confident and socially successful. The reality is that everyone is having the same concerns. An eccentric mix of English, German and French has entered Japanese usage with grand abandon. A kariya woman is a career woman, and a mansion is an apartment. This increasing use of katakana, or unique Japanese versions of Western words, and the younger generation's more casual use of the Japanese language have prompted Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi to worry that these new words may not be understood by a wider audience. As a result, a government panel is proposing to publish a manual on how to speak proper Japanese. Foreign words became katakana Japanese because no existing Japanese words could quite capture a specific meaning or feeling. When the word cool traveled east, all of its English connotations did not make the journey. From a child's point of view, what is the purpose of TV advertising? Is advertising on TV done to give actors the opportunity to take a rest or practice their lines? Or is it done to make people buy things? Furthermore, is the main difference between programs and commercials that commercials are for real whereas programs are not, or that programs are for kids and commercials for adults? As has been shown several times in the literature, G. Butter et al. 1981, Donahue Hank and Donahue 1980, Macklin 1983 and 1987, Robertson and Rosider 1974, Stevens and Studs 1982. Some children are able to distinguish between programs and commercials and are aware of the intent of TV advertising, whereas others are not. Complementary therapies, such as those practiced by naturopaths, chiropractors and acupuncturists, have become increasingly popular in Australia over the last few decades. Interest initially coincided with enthusiasm for alternative lifestyles, while immigration and increased contact and trade with China have also had an influence. The status of complementary therapies is being revisited in a number of areas: legal regulation, the stances of doctors' associations, their inclusion in medical education, and scientific research into their efficacy. With the exception of acupuncture, complementary therapies are not routinely funded through Medicare, so there is little administrative data regarding their use. However, the ABS has some data about the use of complementary therapies which can help inform discussion. Dog breeding does, though, offer a chance to those who would like to understand how body shape is controlled. The ancestry of pedigree pooches is well recorded, their generation time is short and their litter size reasonably large, so there is plenty of material to work with. Moreover, breeds are by definition inbred, and this simplifies genetic analysis. Those such as Elaine Ostrander of America's National Human Genome Research Institute, who wish to identify the genetic basis of the features of particular pedigrees, thus have an ideal experimental animal. Bhutan is the last standing Buddhist kingdom in the world and, until recently, has preserved much of their culture since the 17th century by avoiding globalization and staying isolated from the world. Internet, television, and Western dress were banned from the country up until 10 years ago. But over the past 10 years, globalization has begun to change in Bhutan, but things remain perfectly balanced. Bhutan is the only country in the world that has a GNH. You may think GNH is just another statistically based term with no real-life application, but it refers to gross national happiness. The process of measuring GNH began when Bhutan opened up to globalization. It measures people's quality of life and makes sure that material and spiritual development happen together. Although little quantitative evidence on negative impacts on native wetland biota and wetland function was available at the onset of the control program in 1985, recent work has demonstrated that the invasion of purple loosestrife into North American freshwater wetlands alters decomposition rates and nutrient cycling, leads to reductions in wetland plant diversity, reduces pollination and seed output of the native Lycra malatum, and reduces habitat suitability for specialized wetland bird species such as black terns, least bitterns, pied-billed grebes, and marsh wrens. Conventional methods, physical, mechanical, or chemical, have continuously failed to curb the spread of purple loosestrife or to provide satisfactory control. The invasion of non-indigenous plants is considered a primary threat to integrity and function of ecosystems. However, there is little quantitative or experimental evidence for ecosystem impacts of invasive species. Justifications for control are often based on potential, but not presently realized, recognized, or quantified negative impacts. Should lack of scientific certainty about impacts of non-indigenous species result in postponing measures to prevent degradation. Recently, management of purple loosestrife, Lycra salicaria, has been criticized for lack of evidence demonstrating negative impacts of L. We also need to recognize the broader change that is occurring in how people work, learn, and live. Increasingly, we are moving away from a linear relationship between education, training, work, and retirement, as people move in and out of jobs, careers, caregiving, study, and leisure. Employers of choice remove the barriers between the different segments of people's lives by creating flexible conditions of work and a range of leave entitlements. They take an individualized approach to workforce planning and development so that the needs of employers and employees can be met simultaneously. People who visit health professionals tend to be older than the general population because illness increases with age. However, the proportion of the population who visited complementary health therapists was highest between the ages 25 and 64 years. The lower rates for people aged 65 years and over contrasted with the rate of visits to other health professionals, which increased steadily with increasing age. The reasons for this difference might include lower levels of acceptance of complementary therapies by older people. Alternatively, older people may have different treatment priorities than do younger people because their health on average is worse while their incomes are generally lower.